Okay, so let's spend some time reading this question first and highlighting the important phrases that will help us solve it. So the most important phrase here in this question is, Danielle gave 12 hair clips to Cheyenne. This phrase tells us that the question involves internal transfer. And we have learned before that when a question involves internal transfer, the total is constant. And that simply means that the total in the beginning and the total in the end remains the same. So let's go straight into the question. We'll first write down the ratio in the beginning. So in the beginning, the Danielle is to Cheyenne's ratio is 1:2. And in the end, the Danielle is to Cheyenne is 1:3. Remember, if I'm going too fast, you can always pause the video and replay whatever I've just said. Alright, so since this question is focusing on the total, let's find the total number of units for the first ratio here in red. So if the Danielle has 1 unit and Cheyenne has 2 units, the total number of units would be 3 units. Alright, and if you look at the ratio in the end, the Danielle has 1 unit and Cheyenne has 3 units. So the total number of units would be 4 units. So it's very clear here that the total number of units for both ratios are not the same. And remember, in the beginning what we said, the total needs to be constant. So if they're not the same, we need to do something and make them the same. So we will then find the lowest common multiple of 3 and 4. And if you have forgotten how to find the lowest common multiple, it just means that you list down the multiples of 3 and you list down the multiples of 4 and you circle the common multiple. Alright, so the lowest common multiple of 3 and 4 is 12. Alright, so how do I make 3 units to become 12? I will have to multiply it by 4. Okay, so it does not end here. So once I've multiplied this 3 units by 4 to get 12, I will also have to multiply 4 to the rest of the ratio here. So I'm going to multiply this 1:2 by 4. Okay, and I will get 4:8. So I am done with the first set of ratio. Now I'm going to move back to the second set of ratio, which is in blue here. So remember that the total number of units must be 12. So since I have 4 units here, what must I multiply to get 12? Yes, I must multiply it by 3. Okay, so since I've multiplied by 3, I would get 12 units. And I will need to do the same thing for the rest of my ratio here. So I have 1:3. I'll multiply both of it by 3. And my final ratio will be 3:9. So fantastic if you managed to follow me here up to this point here. Okay, you realize that the ratio at first adds up to 12 and the ratio in the end adds up to 12 too. And that matches what the whole question is about, constant total. Okay, now we can go back to our question. Danielle gave 12 hair clips to Cheyenne. Okay, so if you look at the beginning, alright, Danielle has 4 units and in the end she has 3 units. Alright, so from here you can tell that Danielle actually decreased by 1 unit. Alright, therefore 1 unit represents 12. And to find the total number of hair clips, which is 12 units altogether, at first, it's just 12 times 12. Okay, before we move on to question 2a, once you have understood question 1a, try question 1b on your own. It is similar. Okay, let's move on. Before we look at question 2a, we need to talk about this simple scenario here. If you look at this diagram, I have 9 circles. 3 of them are red and 6 of them are blue. If I were to add 2 red circles, like this. And if I were to take away 2 blue circles, what do you realize? Spend some time to look at it. Okay, the total number of red circles obviously changed. The total number of blue circles obviously changed too. But there's something that remained constant. If you count carefully, you realize that the total number of circles is still 9. Okay, so remember, if I add in 2 red circles and I took out 2 blue circles, even though the number of red and blue circles have changed, the total still remains the same because I put in 2 circles and I took out 2. Okay, with that in mind, we'll move on to question 2a. Okay, some paper and plastic cups were on sale in the ratio 2:3. When 60 paper cups were bought and 60 plastic cups were sold, the ratio of paper cups to plastic cups became 4:3. Okay, I know it sounds like a tongue twister when you read it. That's why you always write down the short form straight away. Okay, so from here, after reading the question, alright, 60 paper cups were bought and 60 plastic cups were sold. Basically just means that the total is constant. Okay, so let's quickly write down the ratios. At first, paper cups to plastic cups 2:3. In the end, paper cups to plastic cups is 4:3. So since the total is constant, let's find the total number of units for the first ratio. So 2 units plus 3 units would be 5 units. And let's find the total number of units for the second ratio. 4 units plus 3 units is 7 units. So obviously both the total units are different now and we need to make them constant. So if you can recall, we need to find the lowest common multiple. So you list down the multiples of 5 and you list down the multiples of 7 and you realize that the common multiple is 35. So in order to get 35 for this first ratio, you need to multiply it by 7. Okay, and you do the same thing for the rest of the ratio. You multiply both 2:3 by 7. And you will get 14:21. So if you're a little confused here, just pause the video and I'll just replay and go fast. You can rewind and go back to what I've said just now. If not, we can move forward. Let's look at the second ratio. I have 7 units here and I want to get 35 units too. So I will multiply it by 5 to get 35 units. Okay, so since I have multiplied this by 5, I will multiply the rest of my ratio, 4:3 by 5. And I will get 20:15. Alright, now that I have this new set of ratio, let me circle it for you. 4:21 is my new set of ratio, and 20:15 is my new set of ratio. I'm going to use whatever I have circled. Okay, so from here, let's look at the paper cups from 14 units to 20 units in the end. Can you see that I added 6 units? Okay, so which means the number of paper cups actually increased by 6 units. And if you look at the question, it says that 60 paper cups were bought, which means that the 6 units represents 60 paper cups. So we can find 1 unit. And to find plastic cups for part 1, in the end, plastic cups would be 15 units here. And to find the paper cups in the end, it would be 20 units. Okay, and that's it. So the main gist of the few questions that we just went through is to be able to identify that the question is about constant total. That's the most important thing. You realize that? Once you know there's a constant total, you will have no problem solving the question, which means that you really need to understand the question. before you can even decide what's the first step to take. Okay, so try question 2B on your worksheet. Alright, and good luck.